Welcome to our San Francisco Mayoral Candidate Forum at the Museum of the African Diaspora. This forum is hosted by several of the city's most prominent business and hospitality organizations: Advance SF, the SF Chamber of Commerce, the Bay Area Council, BOMA SF, the Hotel Council of San Francisco, the Golden Gate Restaurant Association, and SF Travel. The aim is to hear from each candidate equally in a neutral setting. We're hosting 5 separate interviews. Each candidate will be asked identical questions. There may be an opportunity for a few follow-up questions per candidate. Each interview is 45 minutes and in front of a live audience. The Coalition of Host Organizations is not endorsing any candidates, and these interviews are being made public for educational purposes. I'm Margaret Conley and will serve as moderator. Let's get started with Daniel Lurie.
Thanks, Margaret.
What is driving you to be mayor?
I was born and raised here in this city. My wife, Becca, and I are raising 2 young children here. I have always been proud to call San Francisco my home. And I want my kids, I want your kids to be as full of pride to call San Francisco their home. And right now, the direction our elected leaders are taking us leaves me very worried about the direction that we're heading in. I have a track record of getting big things done for the city and the county and the residents of San Francisco. And I want to bring that track record to bear in City Hall.
With your background, there are a lot of ways that you can help the city without being mayor. Share more about why the need to be in this position for you.
I've spent my entire adult life committed to serving the community. I started Tipping Point Community in 2005 with a commitment to providing opportunities to every single person possible. Much has been made of my background, and I do not run from it. I embrace it. I grew up in and around Levi's, and I learned from my stepfather and my mom and my stepmom and my dad that when you are provided opportunities, that you have to pull as many people through the door as possible. And I've done that. I've done that at every turn in my career. Tipping Point, we've raised over $500 million. I was asked by Mayor Ed Lee to chair the Super Bowl 50 committee, and that was an honor. And worked with many people in this room on that effort. And we brought $240 million worth of economic revenue to the San Francisco Bay Area. But we insisted, and I insisted, that 25% of all dollars raised had to go back to the community. And that turned into $13 million. And so it wasn't just about the corporate, part of that event. It was about our community. I've built affordable housing on time and under budget. Walking in here this afternoon, the sky's a little hazy from the fires up in Sonoma County. When the North Bay fires hit in 2017, 2018, I actually led the effort, and we brought together 90 businesses, all sorts of nonprofits. The business community actually turned to Tipping Point, and we pulled off a concert at AT&T Park with Metallica headlining. And we were able to raise $34 million in about 10 weeks. We got it all out the door within 10 months. And I've seen the power of bringing and convening people. I've spent my career doing it, putting, significant dollars to work. But I have to tell you, since 2016, Tipping Point has housed close to 40,000 people here in San Francisco and elsewhere around the Bay Area with tens of millions of dollars. Just imagine what we could do with my leadership and my ability to bring people together, the ability to hold nonprofits accountable with a $15.9 billion budget. I want to go lead our city because I think we can do a lot of big things for the residents of San Francisco.
We're here in downtown San Francisco at the beautiful MOAD. What are your plans for a thriving downtown, for the business community, for residents, for workers, for sports, and for cultural institutions?
We have to act. We have to first address public safety. Nothing else matters if people don't feel safe if businesses don't feel safe, if you don't feel safe taking Muni downtown or walking downtown, which a lot of people don't still, and I understand. And so we have to address public safety. I've said this from day one of my campaign. We have to fully staff the police department and sheriff's department, 911 dispatch office. You have to be for public safety 365 days a year, 4 years as mayor, or in my case, hope to be 8 years as mayor. Simply put, you can't just be for public safety when a foreign leader is in town or a conference is in town. So I'm committed to it every single day of my term. Second, we need certainty in the permitting. We need to allow companies to change the use of their space very easily. And, the conditional use permitting process can hold up somebody 6 to 12 months from changing what they're using their retail office space. Let's allow people to turn it into entertainment zones and entertainment venues more quickly. The days of having 7-story, Macy's retail, those days are probably gone, but maybe Macy's is 2 stories. And, we have residential on the top 2, and we have entertainment in the middle 3. And I think that part is important. We have to create certainty. And so I've put together a plan. It's called my City Hall Accountability Plan. You can read the details, but it's streamlined the permitting. And third, we have to transform how we think of downtown. And I know the other candidates have said this, and I appreciate that. We have to have a 24/7 community. Has to be residential, has to be arts and culture. And we have to do that to welcome not only businesses back, but tourism and conventions. I've told this story before, but I'll tell it to this crew here. I was a block away from the World Trade Center on September 11th, 2001. I saw everything that morning. It was incredibly influential in shaping what I would do for the rest of my life, to be quite honest. It was my 4th day of work at the Robin Hood Foundation. And I can tell you, I lived in the village. No one wanted to go below Houston Street for the first year. Like, everyone's like, I'm not going back down there. It's too much. And I can tell you, there's people that tell me who live in San Francisco, that live, in the peninsula or in Marin. They're like, I'm not going downtown again. I just won't. You all know this just as well as I do. We are coming back. There's not a question in my mind, but it takes vision. It takes accountable leadership. It takes, I put together, and we can get into this, and I know I'm going long, ideas like a climate innovation hub. We have to get serious about attracting businesses back here, small, medium, and big business back. And it starts with acting, addressing public safety, permitting, and transforming what we're doing downtown.
Talk more about how you aspire to make San Francisco a clean tech hub.
All right, you all are the experts in here, so I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I have talked to business leaders, which I've done for the last 20 years. At Tipping Point, if you all want a mayor that is going to engage the business community, that understands the business community, is committed to bringing businesses back, frankly, you really only have one choice in this election. And so at every turn, I've talked to business leaders from 2005 on, but specifically around the Climate Innovation Hub, I've talked to people at companies like Google, at Meta, OpenAI. We have, as you all know well, 22 Salesforce towers of empty office space, 37 million square feet of office space. We have to get creative. No amount of nibbling around the edges or tax incentives is going to help us unless we get, the public safety under control. But, okay, we have empty office space. We have global leaders in AI, and we have a climate crisis on our hands. We have lost out to New York in terms of funding around clean tech. That should be here. Those jobs, that tax revenue should be here. And these big companies that I just mentioned, they have climate goals that they have to meet. They have power needs that they need to meet. AI comes at a cost. Producing all of that energy is something that they need to get a handle on. I've talked to leaders at those companies. They don't want to go somewhere else. Let's do that here, and let's lean into our entrepreneurial spirit, our innovative spirit, and let's marry all three of those together.
Public safety, a big campaign issue. How will you protect the public, fight crime, and work with the various agencies like the SFPD and SFDA to ensure safety in our city?
Committed to it, showing the police that you support them. Once again, 365 days a year for 4-year terms. You can't just be for public safety during an election year. And we've seen that. We've seen that from the last 2 mayors. All of the insiders kind of put their finger up in the air and say, okay, which way are people leaning right now? And right now we're the city, which I'm very happy to see, is coming back to common sense, where you hold people accountable for bad behavior. You put people in jail that commit crimes. Like, we had a period of time where we said, no, let's not do that. And I think it's important that we hold people responsible. Fully funding the police department, I think we have a recruiting crisis right now. And that's because many officers do not feel supported by City Hall. And I'll just leave it at that. And so I think what we're seeing with the school board recall, the DA recall, is that people want to feel safe and they want a fully staffed police department. So what that means in practicality also is that you have officers out walking the beat, getting to know the merchants, walking in commercial corridors. I will say in Chinatown, I've met with members of the API community who are law enforcement, and they feel good about what's going on now for the first time in a while in Chinatown, because they have a number of officers that look like the community that they're serving, that speak the language, that are getting to know, what you want to call it, community policing or walking the beat. We need more of that. We also need people out, officers out in patrol cars. So out in the Sunset, out in the Richmond, early days of the campaign for me, I went to a captain's meeting out there. On a good day, there was 3 patrol cars for 100,000 people out in the Sunset, or in the Richmond, excuse me. That's not enough. Parents walking their kids across crosswalks, people running red lights, running stop signs. Parents tell me all day, every day, that they're scared just for traffic enforcement. Like, we need officers out. Now, let me be clear, because I know this is being recorded and everyone will take everything out of context. More police does not solve all of our problems. I am not suggesting that. But having a fully staffed police department, not 3 or 4 or 500 officers short, which causes officers to be totally reactive and not proactive and not able to deter crime, is a real issue. We all see it. We all know it. And so you have to be, we have to fully staff the police, sheriffs, and 911 dispatch offices.
Since the Supreme Court's hearing on the Grants Pass case, what is your plan for how we'll manage our homeless, unsheltered population?
This one gets me a little fired up, so sorry in advance. This injunction, this is a red herring. This is, once again, City Hall insiders just blaming a judge and saying it's all that person's fault. I don't agree with the ruling. I believe it'll be overturned. But on that day, we should have said we're going to stand up enough shelter beds to get around that injunction. But we waited 9 months. This administration and others, and frankly the governor, also blamed this judge. We need to build the beds. Safe, dignified shelter so that no one resorts to, nor will, under my watch, be allowed to sleep on our streets. So, and by the way, this injunction, this Grants Pass will be overturned. And guess what? In our charter, it says that we still have to offer somebody a shelter bed. So they'll overturn it and we'll still be at we'll have the same challenge. And that is, we don't have enough shelter bed. We can stand up enough. I put out a plan 2 weeks ago called Home Run. We're going to stand up 1,500 shelter beds within the first 6 months of my administration. Yes, people can still refuse the shelter, but under my watch, they will not be allowed to stay on the streets any longer. You have to get tough. I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. We have to send a message to this country and to the world. You do not come to San Francisco to deal drugs or to do drugs or to sleep on our streets. Let's always be compassionate. We always have to be that city of St. Francis. But we can do that by offering safe, dignified shelter. And it's mind-boggling that we haven't done that. We should have done it back then, and I will do it in my first 6 months.
So what's an example of success at Tipping Point related to this that you would implement throughout the city?
I really appreciate the question. 33 Gough Street. We built 78 temporary housing units that are short-term. They can be picked up and moved on very quickly. We got it done for $34,000 a unit. Someone can stay there for up to a year. They have their own lock and key, and there's on-site case management, showers, mental health counseling. You can store your belongings. It's safe, and the city has now replicated. It took a few years, and it costs $134,000 a unit. At every turn, when we've done something at Tipping Point, we've always said, okay, this is a test. This is why I want to be mayor also, because I've shown that what we can do with philanthropic dollars, which are, a drop in the bucket compared to government dollars. But we built this shelter. We did it for $34,000 a unit, and then we hand it off, and it takes 3 extra years. And finally, there's about 100 plus units in the mission, $134,000 a unit, which we all know means that there's something deeply ineffective, deeply broken, and frankly corrupt at City Hall with how things get done. And so 33 Gough Street, and then I can talk about 833 Bryant too.
Go for it.
833 Bryant, I worked with unions to get this built. We got it done on time, under budget, with good paying union labor. $377,000 a unit for 145 units of affordable housing. And people want to hit me on my experience, right? I started with Supervisor Jane Kim and worked through until it was under Supervisor Matt Haney. I had to go around to every single supervisor. There was complications in it. It was one union getting most of the work against some others. I got an 11-0 vote. I went to community meetings. I worked with community. I worked with supervisors. I worked with the mayor, and we got it done. And so that was proof of concept of how you get affordable housing built in this city. And I want to take that learning and apply that to teacher housing, nurses, police, fire, our social workers, the people that take care of us during our darkest times, or the people that take care of our kids, deserve to have a shot at affordability here in San Francisco. Otherwise, we're just going to keep seeing this yawning divide between rich and poor. We need to build more housing for the missing middle and for our workforce. We can do it because I've done it.
What's your vision for city planning? It can take years for small businesses to get permits to open a restaurant or a bar, but carts are allowed to serve food and drinks on the sidewalks. What's your view?
It's frustrating. I sympathize with our small businesses. I sympathize with the business community in this sense. I mean, we decided about 8-9 years ago that business was a bad word in the city. And growing up in and around Levi's, I understood the power of a strong business that was committed to community, which Levi's always was, committed to San Francisco, to taking care of its employees. We have some good examples of 2.0 companies that have done that, whether you're talking about Salesforce and others. We need more businesses like Levi's, like Salesforce, coming back here. We need to say to the business world, we want you here. We want you to be part of the community, however. Like there's strings attached to being here in San Francisco. But we've chased businesses out because we penalize their success. I mean, I've talked to homegrown San Francisco companies that have grown up and now are considered chain stores when they're at 17, 18 stores and they can't open another store in San Francisco. It's insane. These are women-owned companies that tell me I want to open more stores, but San Francisco has made it too hard for me. That changes on day one of my administration. There's going to be a culture of bringing small businesses here, big business back. I want you to be part of the community, just like I encouraged and pushed and prodded companies from 2005 to 2020, who were a big part of our ability to raise over $500 million to tackle issues of poverty. I'm committed to our small business community and bringing business back to San Francisco.
What about zoning in terms of 6 and 8 story buildings and developing the West Side? Yes, go ahead.
Yes. I didn't get to the streamline. So I've been told don't say your website, but I'm going to say my website anyway. If you go to daniellurie.com, my City Hall accountability plan really gets to the heart of streamlining permitting, streamlining contracting, and also streamlining our construction, our big public works projects. The permitting will shave 4 to 5 months off getting housing built in the city, and also helps put a shot clock on our departments when a small business applies for a permit. Okay, right now, the onus is all on the small business or the entrepreneur trying to, pay rent. We've all read about the bakery or the ice cream shop trying to get started, and they go to one department, and one department says, oh, you got to go to fire. Oh, you got to go to DPH. And you have 2 or 3 different DPH people come out to your bakery and tell you 2 or 3 different things. That changes. We're going to have an upfront meeting where 6 or 8 departments are all meeting at one time, where they're going to all have representatives meeting with the small business owner. They're going to tell that small business owner what they need, and then the shot clock starts. 30 days. If city doesn't get back to the small business owner, that small business owner is able to open their shop. None of this, the onus being on the small business. The onus can be on my department heads and on my departments and my office, not on them. That's absurd. Another thing on the construction stuff. Taravel Street. We all know about that project. There's people that say, oh, it's still on time. Whatever it is, many business owners on Taravel Street were told it was going to be a 2-year project. We're on year 5. Okay. Tabitha's is a bakery there. There was jackhammering outside her window, crack in the window. She's called 5 or 6 different departments. All of them have said, no, that's not our department. It's somebody else's department. We've heard that with restaurants with busted pipes on that same street. There's no communication from MTA. There's no one taking accountability. So 6 different departments have 6 different construction management teams. In my administration, there's going to be 1. We're going to streamline all projects through 1 construction management team. We're going to try to get everything as aligned as possible. Yes, I understand PG&E is tough to manage. Just because it's hard doesn't mean we can't do it. I'm tired of this. This is how it's always been done. We're going to shake things up. We're going to streamline big public works projects, and we're going to streamline permitting for our small businesses.
So the zoning question in terms of 6 or 8 story buildings and building up the West Side.
And you're specific. You just want to go West Side because.
You can answer it however you'd like.
We need more housing at all income levels. I'm going to be focused on affordable housing. One of the contestants in this race was fascinating last night, went and basically said the law of supply and demand doesn't work in our city. I thought that was interesting. We need more housing. Full stop. I'd like to see us do more density along commercial corridors. It doesn't just mean on the West Side. I really think that what happened at Stonestown and that project was really thoughtfully done. You got labor, you got business, you got the community with community input. I think that was really strong. There are projects available to us out in Candlestick Point. Down here, we need more density downtown. But every part of this city needs to take on some housing. There's a great housing project. Now, I can still get a little dig in compared to what we did. But the housing out in the Sunset for teachers, 135 units of housing, subsidized. it's 7 stories. It's taller than the other buildings on that block. Neighbors are good with it. They worked with that community, but they did go higher. They went between 6 and 8 on the west side. If you can do it there, by the way, that project took 7 years, okay? 7 years. I was out on Judah Street across from Outer Lands. There's a project going up that's 6 stories across from, other 4-story, but the neighborhood is good with it. So there's also this notion that everyone's against housing everywhere out on the west side. There's actually a lot of housing going up on the west side. Let's be thoughtful about it, but let's hit our RHNA goals so the state doesn't come in and take over full control of our housing.
Transit is vital for the functioning of world-class cities. Do you support this, and what are your plans to transport people to the heart of San Francisco?
I think I support transit. I was just on the phone with some transit leaders. I actually spoke to the head of BART a couple weeks ago. I mean, I'm really concerned about BART and the funding there. I mean, that is a lifeblood for our city. I mean, if that is not up and running and functioning, we're in real economic trouble. For public safety, and then making sure that we can bring in hundreds of thousands of people a day is critically important. So we're going to need help from the state and the feds on that. Absolutely. But ridership picks up if there's a thriving downtown. And so it's the mayor's responsibility to make sure that the conditions are set for a thriving downtown. It's not up to me as mayor to dictate to business how they do their work, but the permitting and the safety, that is on the mayor. Muni, it needs to be clean, it needs to be safe, and it needs to be reliable. It needs to compete with people and cars. Right now, it's not doing that because I have friends, I've met with high school students, kids getting, anti-Asian hate slurs thrown at them on the bus going to and from high school is not okay. We need more ambassadors riding those buses. I got on the 49 in the Mission with one of my colleagues here today, just last week. And, there's a dude smoking with a pit bull, and that didn't feel safe or friendly, and so that's the type of stuff that we have to clean up in our city so that people, grandmas out in the Sunset and the Richmond feel safe taking Muni, which they do not right now. I mean, the Muni lines coming downtown are empty on Market Street. Market Street is like a ghost town right now. So we need to get people onto Muni and absolutely onto BART.
Year after year, the city seems to struggle to balance its over $15 billion budget. Do you see the city as having a revenue problem or a spending problem?
Spending problem. If you talk to City Hall insiders, and you all know everybody in the city who have been part of budget making, no one who has been in elected office has made a tough call in years. They push the problem out a year. I mean, even this budget this year is 15.9, and next year is 15.4. That doesn't make sense to me. We all have to manage our family budgets, and the idea that, okay, we have a $1.4 billion budget deficit or a $2 billion deficit, so and I know there's obligations, I understand the pension, I understand that, but then to say we're going to go up $1.5 billion, what kind of message does that send to everybody? So no, this is not a crisis of resources. This is a crisis of leadership. Every elected official, and I'm not just going after this current mayor, they have failed to make tough decisions for years now. You could even argue for close to a decade or more. If you're in that seat, you got to be willing to make tough calls. And no one in that seat has made a tough call in quite a while. And frankly, they didn't really have to, because we just kept having more and more revenue. We had a booming budget. And this is what I'm going to say about all of the City Hall insiders. From 2010 to now, we've gone from about a $6.5 billion budget deficit, $6.5 billion budget, to about a $15.9 billion budget. Okay? I go to firehouses, I go on ride-alongs with police, I'm going to our social service agencies. Their buildings are crumbling. I was at a firehouse having lunch with we were having breakfast, and they told me that tiles will fall down on them while they're eating in their firehouse. This is in 2024. We just went through a decade of booming budgets, and what did these City Hall insiders do with it? It is not a revenue issue. It is a spending issue and a willingness to make tough calls.
So you've talked about some of the things you would grow. What would you cut?
Well, first you start with the 4,000 empty positions. We got 33,000 paid employees right now, and they budget for 4,000 empty positions. You have to prioritize public safety and DPH. But having said that, we need to cut funding to we have about $5.2 billion that go out to 10,000 contracts overall. 600, let's take a step down, 600 nonprofits take down $1.7 billion of funding. This is where my plan comes in, where you hold those contractors accountable, you hold those nonprofits accountable. You do what I did at Tipping Point for 15 years as CEO of an organization. If you're funding a housing and homelessness group, I want to know, did you keep people housed 6 months in, 12 months in? If you're in an employment or a job training program, what is your exit salary? Like, what are you making hourly? 6 months out, 12 months out, are you still employed? Not whether or not you had a job fair and how many people came through your door, like hardcore metrics. You put accountability into your contracting of nonprofits, those 600 nonprofits, that fades down. That's probably 400 nonprofits that are applying. You get more bang for your buck. You probably have to pay out less. Let's go to the contracts. Public Works, we talked about this. We're going to have contractor scorecards. We're going to measure whether or not you got the Van Ness Street corridor done on time and on budget. If you didn't, if you were years over, if you were millions over, we're not coming back to you. We're not going lowest bid any longer either. We're going best value, okay? So that there aren't cost overruns that they can say, well, you had change orders, and so that's how you make sure we're spending our dollars wisely. We're getting the most out of our money, and that helps reduce the revenue or the payments out.
Let's talk about the city's narrative. How would you summarize it, and is it real or not?
I'll say this every day. We are coming back. When we are at our best, this is the greatest city in the world. This is a boom and bust town. We all know this. All of you here work your tails off day in and day out. And so first, let me say thank you to all of you for continuing to fight during these tough times. And the narrative, there are parts that are absolutely true. And social media absolutely blows things out of proportion. But if you walk in front of, like I did last night, the public library, and there's open air drug markets at our public library, it's a problem. I did a ride along in the Tenderloin during the day 2 weeks ago, and then at night, the next night. We couldn't move a block without something happening. That spot around the proper hotel, like a very cool hotel, it's a scene out of some other country that is not one that you'd want to go visit. And so I appreciate the work and that this organization did, or a few of the organizations did, to change the narrative. That's important. But you have to first address what is going on our streets. You cannot have open air drug markets visible for all of us to see, visible enough so that my 10-year-old son knows the difference between somebody smoking meth and doing fentanyl. He's 10 years old and he knows the difference now. And that should be upsetting to all of us. It's one of the reasons I'm running. I don't want to have to travel around this country and apologize for San Francisco, because we should not be in this place. And we're here because of poor leadership.
So what is your leadership style? As an example, how would you work with the Board of Supervisors?
Everybody loves this question. I work with them like I'll work with anybody else for the common good. That's what is broken at City Hall, is that, oh, this person, I don't like this person, so I'm not going to even find a way to work with them. And by the way, it happens on both sides. We have a issue in our national politics and our local politics where we just demonize each other, and it's sport. Someone comes after you, and then you go, and the cameras are off, and you go shake hands and you wink, but they've forgotten who they're in service to. Okay, I am here because I've served my community for the last 20 years, and that means serving in many cases with many of you in this room. I want to serve you all as your next mayor because I want to turn our city around. And if that means working with a supervisor that disagrees with me 80% of the time, I'm going to find those 20%. I'm going to find that 20% and make sure we do the very best we can. I'm not going to lay the blame at their feet. If something, this is my pledge to all of you and all of you on camera. Something is going to go wrong at the end of January in 2025, and I'm going to be mayor. And I'm going to stand in front of the cameras and say, that's my fault. It's on me. I'm going to own it. I'm not going to throw a supervisor under the bus or a DA or a police chief. It's going to be on me. I'm going to hold my department heads accountable. I'm going to hold myself accountable. And then that allows you to work with people that you might not always agree with. And if they say, oh, maybe this mayor's not going to throw me under the bus every single time, or blame me for everything, or just stop working with me, I think you can get a lot done. And I've proven that. I proved it at Tipping Point. I brought together some of the best business and civic leaders who, by the way, don't agree on many things on politics, but we all agreed on funding organizations that got the job done. Super Bowl, some good friends in this room that helped me. We didn't always agree on everything. We got the job done. Housing, I said to you how I got that done. So it's just innate in my being that I'm going to work with people, I'm going to convene people, and we're going to do the best we can for the people of San Francisco.
If you win, what would success look like for you the first 100 days of the new term?
When we win, we are going to do a few things. First, I've talked about some of these. We are going to put measurements in place for all of our contractors and nonprofits. Nonprofits are going to, especially for those that receive over $1 million, they're going to have to register as lobbyists so that we understand who and what, who they're meeting with. So my City Hall accountability plan, I talked about shelter, the 1,500 shelter beds in the first 6 months. So we're going to get started on that path in the first 3 months. My commitment to this group, to Advance and to Union Square, is that, and I've said this to a couple of other entities, I've said it really specifically also to the API community, and I want to say it to you all as well, but what I said to the API community, 37% of our city's population, I've said not only are they going to have a seat at the table, they're going to have seats at the table. There's going to be representation from the API community at every level of my administration. Department heads, police, fire, commissions. I want to say the same thing to the business community. You all are going to be an entity, a group that I turn to often, daily. Like, I want your input. I'm going to convene the best of the business world, the best of the business community, to help us bring back business. And I think that's critically important for you all to hear from me. You know, I can say, oh, I grew up in and around Levi's, and I'm committed to this. It's how we continue to be that compassionate city that takes care of our people that are struggling. You need revenue to do that. You need tax revenue to be able to provide social services. to have a world-class education system once again, which we need to also get back to. We need small business and we need big business back, and you will have a partner in me in that.
What's your vision for the future of the city of San Francisco?
We're going to be the greatest city in the world again, not a question. People are going to be dying to come back here. I think, 8 years as mayor, that 37% occupancy rate, vacancy rate, that we're well below 10%. Like, I don't know, I'll ask you all where we should be, but it should be single digits for sure. We should be the envy of the world again, just like we were, 7, 8, 9 years ago. Maybe a little longer, but we're going to be the envy of the world again. We're going to have clean and safe streets. We're going to have world-class parks, not just at Christie Field, but at India Basin. Chinatown is going to be flourishing and thriving again, and our public schools are going to be back. That's another thing. I think, even though the mayor doesn't have direct control over the schools, we talk about the issues of mental health and drugs and the overdose crisis, which is just crushing our city and our soul. It starts with a world-class education, early childhood education, but also, just a world-class K through 12 system that we simply do not have right now. We need to get back to that.
You touched a little bit on this, but how do you want the world to see San Francisco?
Yeah, everybody's like, I gotta be there. I have to have headquarters there. I have to have business or at least a presence there. By the way, this doesn't have to be that hard. We are the most beautiful city in the world. We have UCSF and we got Cal and Stanford. We have OpenAI. We have Anthropic. We have Google. We have Meta, Apple. Everything is right around us. But everybody's been like, I'm going to take a foot outside of San Francisco. We've pushed these companies away to Brisbane and South San Francisco and San Jose. Those people that are so, happy that let's stick it to people. But when they stick it to the business community, they now know that they can just move 2 miles away, and then we get none of that revenue. And so we have to get back competitive. It has to be, we're never in California going to win on taxes. Writ large, not going to win on taxes. We understand that. But we can win on everything else. And the mayor has to set a tone. And it's got to be that business is not a bad word any longer. And in fact, we want you here. And I'm not going to apologize for that.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, my goodness. Yes, vote for Daniel Lurie, number 1 on your ballot. No, I just want to, how would I end? I'd say, I have friends that have said to me, Daniel, you don't need this. I start off most of my things and people are like, the first question I get asked is, why? Why are you doing this to yourself? And I'm doing it because I love San Francisco. I want us to be proud again. I said this at the beginning, but I need to do this. That's why I'm doing it, because I fundamentally believe that leadership is missing, that I'm able to bring people together. I want to work with you all. I want to work with communities around this city and get us back to our rightful place of being the greatest city in the world.
Thank you very much to our San Francisco host organizations, to the Museum of the African Diaspora, and to Daniel Lurie.
Thank you very much.